Pranam to the devotees present and maybe some are on YouTube, some will listen to the recording. Pranam to all of you. Pranam to the devotees present and okay. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Siddhantotpala Saranitya Hangsam Vilasatmakam Audaryakya Sudhama Sevaka Dhanam Vishrambha Bhakti Pradam Yacha Yukti Vichakshanam Tvaghabhiro Vaishishta Shaktya Sada Vandeham Tripurari Namakayatim Shri Bhakti Vedantinam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Swami Shri Bhakti Vedanta Prabhupadaya Te Namaha Gurvagyam Shirasi Dritva Shaktya Vesha Swarupine Hare Krishneti Mantrena Paschatya Prachatarine Vishvacharya Prabharyaya Divya Karunya Murtaye Shri Bhagavatam Madhurya Gita Jnana Pradaine Gaura Shri Rupa Siddhanta Sarasvati Nishevine Radha Krishna Padam Bhoja Bringaya Gurave Namaha Devam Divyatanum Suchanda Vadanam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Shri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Sarasvatanam Varam Vandetam Shubhadam Madeka Sharanam Nyasishvaram Shridharam. So welcome again. This is part 3 of the series As the Sun Rises and Sets, Gaudiya Vaishnavism Goes West. In the first episode, I was talking mainly about anartha nivritti as a concept in general, because anyone who is on this path is going to have to go through anartha nivritti, whether they are born in India or born in the West or on some other planet or whatever. And because when I think of the idea of Gaudiya Vaishnavism coming to the West, I think of conversion. But it's not only Westerners that are converts. It's anyone who is on this path is going to have to become a convert. Actually, the whole path is about conversion. So we're going through the different types of anarthas listed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and in which way they will have to be uprooted or converted or turned around, changed. So there are. We also compared it to the list of anarthas given in Madhurya Kadambini by Srila Vaishvanath Chakravarti Thakur. That there he talks about where the anarthas come from, the root of the anarthas, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking about, in his list, he talks about what kinds of anarthas they are. So in Madhurya Kadambini, it's anarthas coming from bad deeds, anarthas coming from good deeds, anarthas coming from aparad, and anarthas coming from devotion. And Haripriya was asking at the end of that episode a clarification about anarthas coming from bhakti itself. And I looked it up again after in Madhurya Kadambini, and there's a nice an analogy given, it's like when you're watering a seed, you are also at the same time watering the weeds around it, not meaning to do that, but it just happens as a byproduct. So that you kind of you need to kind of pay attention to that, and also uproot the weeds that are growing from your cultivation of what you're trying to cultivate. So, and then in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's list, he gives the different types of anarthas, which he gives aparad as a type of anartha. And like I said, in Madhurya Kadambini, aparad is also a source of anartha. So it's aparads cause anarthas, and anarthas cause aparads, and if they're not dealt with in the right way. So then in the second episode, I talked about to kind of rewind and step back. So before looking at how Gaudiya Vaishnavism came to the West, how did it come to this world in the first place? Of course, Navadvip Dham is eternal and also eternally present in this world, but how did it happen that it came, that it I said that it made itself visible on earth. So we went through Mahaprabhu's reasons for appearing, his three internal reasons, and then the fourth reason, which was to teach and preach and spread bhakti, which is also an internal reason in a sense, as Guru Maharaj draws out from the commentary of Sanatana Goswami on the Naparayeham verse in the Bhagavatam, that it is to, since he feels that he cannot repay the love of the gopis, he's coming to the world to recruit servants, sadhus who will be servants of Radha and the gopis. And then I brought up a few examples of things related to Gaudiya Vaishnavism coming to the West, but not by devotees, but by others. So I gave the example of this Franciscan monk who had observed the Ratha Yatra in the year 1321 or something like that, and went to the his diary was circulated in the West, in Britain and so on, and so the word Jagannath came to mean something something big and powerful that is crushing everything in its way, because this monk had seen how the Hindus were throwing themselves under the wheels of the Ratha Yatra cart to kind of commit a kind of a pious suicide and attain liberation. So this word Jagannath got spread around the world, and it can be seen in many places in popular culture even today. And then there was the example of the Bhagavatam being translated to a European language for the first time, and it was in French in the 1700s, but not by a devotee, but by an Indian who had converted to Christianity and then was translating Sanskrit texts, a kind of for scholarly purposes. But it was anyway the holy name of Jagannath and the most holy scripture of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas anyway came to the West first by non-devotees, non-Vaishnavas. So now this time I'm going to focus on the more like conscious effort to bring Gaudiya Vaishnavism to the West how you say, for like bringing it to the West for the sake of preaching, for turning others towards Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so our Guru Maharaj usually calls Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur the first Western convert, because he was educated in the British education system that was there in the since India was a British colony. So he had Western ideals. He describes in his Bhagavad speech how he and his friends used to hate the Srimad Bhagavatam because the authorities who were Christian had looked through the Bhagavatam and found the examples like the Rasa Lila, which makes it seem like a god is immoral. So they were judging the Vaishnavas as worshipping an immoral god, and there were like Bengali intellectuals who were kind of intimidated by this, so they were trying to modify Hinduism or Vaishnavism so that it would be more how you say, clean, so like more focus on the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is sober and teaching gyan and so on. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was kind of in a similar. He was actually Christian at one point. Bhaktivinoda Thakur during his in his student time at school. But it said when he has explained that when he read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, then he kind of his eyes opened up to the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was able to see the Srimad Bhagavatam from the perspective of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was life-changing. So he is kind of like the. I've been thinking about it this week, that he's kind of like what is it called? Like he's like paradigmatic. He's like personifying East meeting West. There is this poem by what is his name? Who wrote the Jungle Book? I forget his name. That the East is East and the West is West, and the twain shall never meet. But then at the end of that poem, it says that the East and the West can meet. So he describes that in a beautiful way. But you can check the poem. So he had this. He's like the let's see, I have something in the chat here. Kipling, Rudyard Kipling, that's right. East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet, says Sarada Louise Sen. Thank you for that. That's exactly the one. But then, like, look towards the end, and you will see in that poem the ending that there's a twist at the end. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is kind of personifying this the meeting of the two worlds. and kind of getting the best of both worlds. So he was passionate about sharing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings with the West, and he wrote a book that was in Sanskrit, but he wrote an English kind of foreword to it that he sent to some university libraries in Canada and US, and I think one has been found in a Canadian library. And he sent that book out in 1895, which was the same year that Prabhupada was born, if I'm not right. I might be wrong on this. I might be 1 year off there, but something like that, 1895-ish, which is kind of prophetic. And there were also other Bengalis who were inspired to take Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings to the West. So I've been looking a little bit at the first ones. There were two Vaishnavas who went to the West before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples, and who were not related to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And of course, other than that, they're all Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So the first one was Syamananda Bharati, and he went to New York in 1902 and was preaching there. He had some affiliation with Swami Vivekananda, who had kind of given him some contacts. You may know that in 1893 there was this Parliament of the World Religions in Chicago. So Swami Vivekananda was there, and he was an Advaitin, and he was representing Hinduism. So he gave a presentation of Hinduism that was kind of equated with Advaita Vedanta, which lasted, like that kind of imprint lasted for very long in the West. That you can still see it in many school books and things like that. That when they explain Hinduism, they explain it as Advaita Vedanta, and it's much because of Swami Vivekananda's speeches there in Chicago. So, but you can see that Vivekananda also helped a Vaishnav to establish himself in the U.S. So this Premananda Bharati, he wrote a book that I've been looking at today called Shri Krishna, the Lord of Love, and it's beautiful. He goes from the very basics. It's like 300 pages. He goes describing everything, like the Shastric worldview, for a couple hundred pages, and before he goes into the different yoga systems and bhakti yoga, and then he talks about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he says that he's intending to write. He says that this whole book is just to kind of prepare the audience to hear about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because you first have to hear about all these things and about Krishna, and then you can understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's praising Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very much at the end, and calling him the Christian of Christians. And this Premananda Bharati also later established himself in Los Angeles, and actually had like a sort of temple there, and he had a magazine that was sent out, and he had there are different ideas about how many followers he had, but he had a good number of followers, and I heard from Brigu today that one of his followers wrote a book later with her experiences with Premananda Bharati. And then, but when, let's see, this Premananda Bharati went back to India after some years, and it's not really known what happened to his movement. It seems like they all it wasn't really kept up as an institution or anything, but of course it must have left imprints in many people's hearts, and then some decades later, there was this Mahanambrata Brahmachari who I think he made his doctoral thesis, or whatever it's called, that gives you the title PhD, at Chicago University, and he did it about Jiva Goswami's teachings about the Sandarbhas. So he was also teaching, and he met with Thomas Merton, who is very popular among monastics of all kinds. I've noticed also, like within our Gaudiya Vaishnava community, there are many people who appreciate Thomas Merton and his books. And Merton had asked this Mahanambrata Brahmacharya about the Eastern teachings, but Mahanambrata had apparently told him that he should go deeper into his own tradition, which he did apparently. But other than that, I'm not sure of like if there's any like movement or anything left after this Mahanambrata. But of course, again, there are impressions, bhakti samskaras coming to the West, and this time with actual, like with intention, and not just incidental. So then we have Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the son and disciple of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who I mentioned first, who sent out his book about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in 1895. So he had this desire and vision that Gaudiya Vaishnavism would go to the West. And it's interesting, I read a quote the other day where Bhaktivinoda Thakur was writing that, like, it's happening. Like there are educated Westerners who are ordering mridangas and kartals so that they can also perform kirtans. I haven't heard more about that. Like, I'm really curious who that was who was ordering mridangas and kartals to the West. But he had this view that people from all countries would come to Navadvip and chant, like walk in procession in a Harinam and chant Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan. And as our Guru Maharaj says that he was there when that prophecy was fulfilled. Like he was there when Srila Prabhupada had just established the temple in Mayapur, like the the kind of foundational stone of the temple. And people from all countries were coming there and chanting Nam Sankirtan. But that is jumping ahead. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very much aware and very much tuned into this desire and vision of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he was really trying to manifest that. And in the 1930s, he was sending some 4 or 5, at least, preachers to London and to Germany, and they were like mainly preaching to the elite, preaching to the elite of society about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it never became like a big that didn't spark any like big movement in the West, but again, some people were deeply touched and converted and took it very seriously. Like there's this woman in London who was initiated by Bhakti Saranga Prabhu, one of the preachers who were sent by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and she opened a Gaudiya Math in London, which is still there today. Our Padmanabha Maharaj was there just last year, a couple of years ago, and visited that temple in London. And it's interestingly, it's completely a Bengali community there. They all speak Bengali. Like the lecture is in Bengali, and most of the listeners are Bengalis. So he needed English translation to hear the class there. And of course there is Sadananda Swami, who came in contact with Bon Maharaj through this. Bon Maharaj was Srila Bhaktivedanta Bon Maharaj was also one of the preachers sent, who connected with this German who became Sadananda Swami, who in turn had several Swedish and German disciples. So also they're like not a big movement, but a few people really taking it to heart, and that that disciplic succession is also still alive today in Sweden and Germany. And then of course the biggest success was had by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who came to the West in 1965. He now I don't remember how many years he waited. It was something like 30. He asked his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, what kind of service he could do, because he felt he was not very connected to the mission since he was a householder. Of course, he was very active, but he still felt like he was not as fortunate as the sannyasis and brahmacharis who were serving in the mission full time. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur responded to him in a letter that I think it would be good if you would preach in English. So that is like just a few words, but very powerful kind of like Guru Nishta said, or maybe it was Chitta. I think that both Guru Nishta and Chitta Hari were speaking from this book, Atomic Habits, that atoms are small but very powerful. So just a few words from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and in the very receptive, powerfully receptive Abhay Charan Prabhu, who became A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So he was kind of nourishing this this desire of Srila Saraswati Thakur in his heart, and in 1865 he took off to the West with almost nothing. He had a few copies of his own Srimad Bhagavatam commentary, and a small amount of money. And he went to Boston and later to New York, where kind of the whole thing sort of exploded, you can say. It really shows that, like, when the time has come, the time has come. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was as our Guru Maharaj says, he had emptied himself out of any other desire than just serving his guru's mission. So it said he one day sat down beneath a tree in Tompkins Square Park in New York, and he just sat down with a pair of kartals and closed his eyes and began chanting the Mahamantra. And Srila Prabhupada had very strong faith in the Mahamantra, a very strong connection and relation to the Mahamantra, very much working together with the Mahamantra, taking responsibility for the Mahamantra spreading. So he was sitting down and chanting, and this is at least the way I've heard the story, that he sat down, chanted the Mahamantra, and then when he opened his eyes, there was full of people around him, just curious. So he started to preach to them, and that was the beginning of the of ISKCON, you can say, which he later instituted. And I would like to read the kind of the constitution of ISKCON. So kind of the idea he had when he institutionalized, when he, I say, in a hard form, institutionalized Gaudiya Vaishnavism. As we have mentioned before, there's a soft institutionalization, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming to this world, and then his disciples taking Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's overflow of ecstasy and turning it into something intelligible. And then here we have Srila Prabhupada opening temples in the West. And I should mention one thing, that the reason for bringing Krishna consciousness to the West was like in the mind of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, was that it's simply not limited. Like, nothing should limit Krishna consciousness. It should go everywhere. So if it can go to the West, then, like, why shouldn't it? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wrote specifically about the US. say, we request the devotees to be with us in praying for Sri Gora Sundar's grace, so that the Gaudiya teachings will spread to America. By his grace, discussion of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is already being done in Europe, and particularly in London. Why should America remain untouched? And I also read, like when he was talking about the expansion of Krishna consciousness, he was saying that even like what to speak of simply spreading it to humans in the West, he was saying also animals and plants should be part of this movement. He was saying, like, when it becomes, he was writing something to the effect that when it becomes possible to speak the language of plants, then we should also try to teach plants about Krishna consciousness. Very, very sweet. And animals and plants. So it should simply go wherever it can go. So whatever opportunity opens up, that should be seized. Was kind of the idea. And so here I want to read Srila Prabhupada's statutes when he established ISKCON as a society. So it's the purposes of ISKCON. So to educate the greater human society in the techniques of spiritual life as the basis for a balanced psychic and biological development, and thereby achieve for the first time in human society a real peace and unity among the contending forces in the world today. B, to propagate the sense of Godhead, the all-attractive personality of primal and eternal form, as he himself revealed in his own words in the Bhagavad Gita, the holy scripture of the Lord Sri Krishna, the Godhead. C, to bring together individuals in a society, regardless of nationality and irrespective of creed or caste, in order to develop a nearness to the Godhead, and thereby the idea that within the members and humanity at large, there is an infinitesimal soul spirit that is part and parcel in quality with the Godhead, and that all life is meant for the satisfaction of said Godhead, the Supreme Soul. D, to encourage the teachings of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who demonstrated practically the transcendental process of approaching the absolute personality of Godhead by his acts of congregational chanting of the holy name of God, a process known as Sankirtan. E, to prove by active work and preaching that Lord Sri Krishna is the only enjoyer of all the outcomes of individual and collective sacrifice, penance, meditation, arts, culture, science, because he is the supreme proprietor of the whole universe. Eternally a part of him, everyone knows him as a friend. Real peace can be attained when this is realized. In fact, this much reflects the text 529 of the Bhagavad Gita, which Srila Prabhupada called the peace formula. I don't remember the whole verse now, but Sarvaloka Maheshwaram something. F, to assist whenever and wherever possible in the building of a social structure on the real foundation of spiritual progress and establishment of peace and unity between men throughout the world. G, to attempt to save men individually from the chain of victimization, the ongoing trend in modern civilization operates by, in the name of ideologies of false sentiment, so that man may again be a free soul to act and live freely with spiritual vision. This is possible by individual spiritual initiation, diksha, when a man can see everything in Godhead and Godhead in everything. It's a very beautiful definition of what diksha is. So I'll say it again, that it's possible to be a free soul to act and live freely with spiritual vision. This is possible by individual spiritual initiation, diksha, when a man can see everything in Godhead and Godhead in everything. Next, H. To further toward realization, this highest truth as revealed by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis, headed by Srila Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis. I. To have for its objectives amongst the others four principles which the Goswamis had in view. They are the following. Number 1, to erect a holy place of transcendental pastimes, as well as a place where members of the Lord Sri Krishna can flourish. 2, to propagate all over the world in the form of missionaries the process of devotion, the transcendental service to the Godhead, and to make known that this devotional service is the main function of the human being. 3, in order to accomplish this, to adopt proselytizing methods of peaceful means and establish a broader society of association for all members, including scholars and admirers, to engage in this service as put forth in the Srimad Bhagavatam. 4, to install wherever it's possible the worship and temple of Radha Krishna and that of Shri Chaitanya, and to give facility to everyone to become trained in the modes of archana, or preparatory principles of devotional service. And reading these 4 last things here now, this I'm pretty sure this is from Mahaprabhu's teachings to Sanatan Goswami, and they are all in one verse, kind of said shortly. And this was the verse that came to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur after he had been doing 9 years of bhajan, and this verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita came to him, and he saw it as a sign that now he should get up, and because he had kind of followed, he had kind of fulfilled the order of Srila Gorkishore Das Babaji to do bhajan. He had become successful in bhajan, you can say, and now he had to follow Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's instruction to preach. So this sign came here from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings to Sanatana Goswami. So we go on with Prabhupada's statutes. J, to introduce to the members of the society and humanity at large a simpler and a more natural purpose in life by means suitable to the particular place and time, and as enjoined in the Bhagavad Gita. Because you can kind of, like if you think that, for example, that Prabhupada was rigid and that Guru Maharaj is more progressive and lenient or whatever, you can see that actually it's Guru Maharaj seeing these things in Prabhupada that maybe like others didn't pay so much attention to. K, to organize educational programs such as classes and lecture tours, and to institute services such as mailing for the benefit of the members of the society and humanity at large. L, to publish periodicals, books and/or pamphlets in all important languages in order to reach human society and give an opportunity to communicate with the society. M, to invoke the quality of goodness, particularly in every member of the society, individually by the process of diksha, and by establishing one in the status of a Brahmin, good and intelligent man, on the basis of truthfulness, knowledge, and faith in the transcendental service of the Lord. N, among the secondary objectives of the society, it shall undertake the following activities: So here comes the 4 last points. The activities that ISKCON shall undertake. Number 1, to revive the scientific system of social orders of classification based on intelligence, martial spirit, productivity, and common assistance. Very creative names for the 4 varnas. Generally known as the 4 castes, with reference to quality and worth for the common cause of world society. 2, to discharge as a matter of course the vitiated system of supremacy of one man over another by false prestige of birthright or vested interests. 3, to popularize the vegetable grain diet under approved methods in order that full value of protein, carbohydrate, fat, and vitamin benefit may be derived therefrom. And 4, to discourage intoxicating or addicting habits of all descriptions and dimensions. That's a very wide topic. And to expose such persons thus afflicted to approved methods of spiritual realization. Then it's signed A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Acharya and 4 of his disciples. So this is what Srila Prabhupada and his disciples set out to do in the beginning, and spreading all over the world eventually. First, I think from New York, it went to San Francisco, then to Los Angeles, London, back to India, Australia, Europe, and everywhere. So in this episode, I've kind of covered the intentional spreading of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the West. And West meaning actually, I mean, basically everywhere, not just I say not just West, because it's also East. For example, Australia is to the East, but like kind of Western culture, but also really anywhere. Like it also went to Africa. China, everywhere. So we have covered what conversion means, that everyone has to go through conversion, how Gaudiya Vaishnavism came to this world in the first place, and then appeared in India and then spread everywhere. First unintentionally, and then intentionally. So in the next episode, I'm going to talk more about the kind of fine-tuning and deeper conversion, which we have already seen some examples of, but I'm going to kind of zoom more into that. Kind of first how we have talked about Gaudiya Vaishnavism coming to the West, but I'm going to talk about how you say more and more of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is coming to the West, and how people are getting a better and better and more refined understanding of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in various ways. So I will end here. Thank you so much for joining on this holy day of here in Finland. It's Jagannath Mishra's festival today. I guess that was yesterday in the US, but here it's today. So I feel very blessed to be speaking on this day. If anyone has any comments or questions. Here I see Brigopad, who has been helping me very much with this presentation.
Dandavat, Prabhu. Not really a question, but more a question. You read this constitution of ISKCON. And it was very interesting. If you would write something similar like that for Sri Chaitanya Sangha, or what would be the biggest differences? Well, out of these points, were there something that you think could be left out and something that would be needed instead?
The first thing that comes to mind is how Guru Maharaj is focusing more on teachings than on any physical institution. Because he said it was his assessment that people today are not interested in joining an institution, but they may still be interested in ways of thinking. So he said he thinks people may be interested in joining Gaudiya Vaishnavism as a way of thinking. So he wanted to create, when he established his mission in 85, his idea was to have a reading congregation, so that people were first of all reading and then maybe getting together on the basis of what they have read, rather than any other kind of forms of preaching and organization. So I guess a mission statement. There is actually a mission statement. I believe. I think we let's see. Let's see. Shri Chaitanya. We posted it on Shri Chaitanya Sangha page, but it's kind of hidden. Like, I don't think many people will notice that. But this is how Guru Maharaj, he writes: "We have no other business in this world save and accept the service of Shri Krishna. That alone will bring good fortune to whomever comes across its path. Shri Chaitanya Sangha is not a philanthropic organization, of which there are so many in this world. It is not Epicurean or abjuratory in design," which I see I can kind of grasp the meaning of the words, but I can't explain them. Epicurean would be, I guess, enjoyment, and abjuratory would be it's basically, it's not about enjoyment or not about renunciation. It is serving and dedicating in nature. It holds that service is its own reward, and that the serving, dedicating spirit finds its fullest expression in the Krishna conception of Godhead. The revealed scriptures of the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage provide us with a wealth of information concerning the nature of our homeland. It is my hope that the members of Shri Chaitanya Sangha will take courage from these scriptures and the examples of those who have gone before them, and march on to meet the death of their own false sense of identity." So that is kind of the very essentialist statutes of Shri Chaitanya Sangha. And of course, you asked if I would write one. I would have to think of that. I can try to think of that till next time. And I'm sure it's something that maybe Padmanabha Maharaj would be interested in, maybe putting together something like that. So maybe with his assistance. Okay. So I think we can stop there. I see Sharda is writing: "A devotee told me that Krishna consciousness literature was first found in 1967 in McGill University. Then I read the same in a Back to Godhead article around 1984 about how Krishna consciousness came to the West." And then she says, "Jai Jagannath Mishra in Finland." Thank you very much, Sharda. Okay, if there are no other comments, then we can stop here. And see you next time for the last episode where we will wrap up. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanande. Hari Bol.
Syamananda Prabhu ki
Jai.
Sangha ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, everyone.